What's up, legends? Welcome back to another episode of 16 types of ... where we, that's actually you and me, take one letter of the alphabet and draw it in 16 different ways. That's right, you've heard it. We're drawing it out. If you think that you cannot draw or you don't have the talent to, well, let me state this one little fact for you. 95% of drawing is learnable. So it's not a talent, it's actually just practice. And what we're doing right here is exactly for you. For this exercise, you don't need more than just pencil and paper. I will use the iPad Pro with Procreate to draw this out because this is an easier way for the process and everything. It's just simpler. So this is a little exercise that I like to do from time to time because it's not only a good exercise for you to practice your drawing and lettering, but also to have a cheat sheet. Because whenever you want to draw a new word or you look for inspiration, also if you haven't seen my video on inspiration from last Monday, we are going to find inspiration in the wild. You should definitely check that out because it tells you more about how to actually find inspiration, how to look at stuff, and you can see inspiration everywhere. Okay, back to the video again. You can do that with any letter you want. Today though, we are taking the letter B. B is a really special letter for me actually because I was born in Bembareke, Benin. Probably most of you have no idea where this is. This is actually a country in Africa. Then the town where I lived the longest is Biel, which is a city in Switzerland where all the watches come from, like Rolex and Omega and Swatch. All these watches that James Bond wear or some other fancy people wear. Now we've already talked so much, let's get started with the letter B. Alright, the first three letters are gonna be really easy to do because we are taking the basics of font families. So there are three basic font families. There's sans serif, there's serif, and there's script. Now number one, the sans serif. For this sans serif, we're taking just the same thickness all around. What's important when you draw it out, or when you draw it in actually, is that when you have that crossbar that comes together, that's the little middle part where it comes together, that you actually have them overlap. Then you just fill those out and you got your first letter B. Congratulations! Number two is the serif form. So serif is just having actually the sans serif, but adding those serifs. For example, in this B, you only have serifs at two locations, at the top and the bottom. Number three, the script form. So this one, you're gonna use those contrasts where all the downstrokes are thick and the upstrokes are thin. This will create that contrast that is really well recognized, and if you look at those letters, you will see that it appears everywhere. Now, if you don't have a brush, that's not a problem at all because you can actually just fake that. That's called faux calligraphy. And what we can do here is actually add those strokes on the left and the right side and basically just color that in. Number four, black letter. Now what's important to know about black letters is that you actually use a fountain pen with a nib that's just straight. And this straight line will always be held the same way. Number five. Number five is actually a stretched B. So what you can do with letters, when you play around with them, you can actually like compress them into a really small space or just really stretch them out into a long form. So this is what we're gonna do. We're just gonna use the beginnings and the end part and just stretch them out. And then just add those long strokes in the middle. Number six is actually what I would call a bee in the wind. Imagine a bee was freshly painted and is now standing in the wind. Now all the color from everywhere just starts to dripping off. And this is the effect that I'm trying to get when I draw this bee. Number seven, B is for bold. That's why you can actually always play with boldness and lightness with any letter. You can augment the heaviness of every letter by just adding a lot more strokes around it. Or you can make it really thin to have it so light that you can barely see it. Now in this exercise, because we're taking the letter B, I wanted to make this one really bold. But just keeping it bold would be just not enough. I wanted to add some inlines and a little drop shadow line around it. Now as you can see, you can always add a little more to a letter. Just try it out, see what works best for you. Number eight is the inverse contrast. So all the strokes that are just on the top and the bottom will be heavy, and just in the middle everything will be light. You'll see that font appear mostly in cowboy movies or back in the days where actually cowboys lived, and you have that in their saloons, in the barbershop, and this would be the style that would be used in that time. Alright, we're already halfway through. This is exciting, guys. Now number 9 is a 3D letter. What we're gonna do here is actually only use the 3D as the negative to show the B. All we do is actually use the skeleton first, then we draw in the 3D in, and then color that in and erase the last bits of the skeleton. Number 10, the embossed B. So an embossed letter, you'd usually find that somewhere, probably on sign paintings, barbershops, or wherever. And the embossed way is actually to think of the letter being built like this, like a pyramid. And it will go all the way around, and you'll have, depending on where the light comes from, usually from the top, will have different shades. Also, what I tried to do here is doing a drop shadow, just a little bit displaced from that letter. And what I did here is actually did some straight lines and then just erased a little bit around just to make a little bit better contrast between the letter and the drop shadow. Sweet! Number 11. As soon as your ideas start to fade, which is usually around here, it's when you start thinking of objects or things that start with the letter B. Now, B could be bullets, and this is exactly what I use here. I drew out 2 bullets that are shaped in the sense of the B. What is really important always is know the shape and form of a B, what makes it recognizable as a B, and then just play around with that. Number 12 is exactly the same principle. Still think of a letter B like barbecue. If you're doing a barbecue, you usually use sausage somewhere. If you're a vegetarian, you might want to use something different, or if you're a vegan. Anyway, now this is more an illustration than lettering, but when you draw those B out, I always try to actually mimic a little bit the light, and I still have to learn a lot about illustration, but this is the closest I got to it. Don't forget, this is an exercise. This doesn't have to be perfect. This doesn't have to be on the next poster. This is just an exercise. Number 13. Well, these are the last final 4s, and for number 13, we are using a brush B as well. So again, with the brush B, we always hold the brush nib the same way. We do the same strokes, and the upstrokes really thin, downstrokes thick. This creates this nice contrast, like I said before. There are tons of variation of doing a brush script B, and again, if you don't have a brush pen, don't worry, you can draw that out with just a pencil. And number 15, probably my favorite. This one is B for bricks. I don't know about you, but I loved to play Legos when I was a kid. I created those massive towers. I was building crazy stuff, and I tried to go bigger and better. So this one has actually a lot of complicated things that I had to work out first, is how to draw that, like how to use those bricks. And for that, always simpler to do is to have a grid layout in the background. So if you're drawing that on paper, start with a grid, look at how the B would look flat, then you can change that around, move it to a 3D layer in just having a little bit angled, and also color that one in with different colors. It's really helpful to just create that look more realistic or more like Legos, but also you can just do that with bricks. You can color in a wall that has bricks and just color that B inside. Now, number 15, I was running out of ideas for this one, so I went on Pinterest, I looked up a few different ones, and here I copied one that I found online. I changed it a little bit to make it a little bit more my own, but the shape and size and style, I love this one. Last but not least, number 16. A really old style B with a lot of decorative elements. So what I did here is actually I colored in the lower part and left the top just as is, and then started to add some decorative elements. If you're not sure about how to do them, there is no right or wrong way. It's all about practicing, it's all about trying out. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video has inspired you to create your own 16 types of B. If you like this video, please give a thumbs up. And if you love this video, why don't you subscribe? Also, if you haven't already, create something today, even if it sucks. And we'll see you in the next video. Here is where you can subscribe. This is where you can subscribe.